we act. And with that in mind, I know that's what Michael's going to focus on. Michael Deas.
My name is Michael Deas and I work as the coordinator in Europe with the Palestinian Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions National Committee, which is a coalition in Palestine of NGOs, trade unions and popular committees that works to lead the movement for boycott, divestment and sanctions against Israel until it complies with international law. Towards the end of last year, I travelled to Palestine and attended the third national BDS conference in Palestine in Hebron. It was attended by about 500 Palestinian activists, and it was really truly inspiring to see what BDS means in Palestine. And in Palestine, BDS means opposition to normalization, opposition to dialogue projects that seek to equate the oppressor with the oppressed. But it was also fantastic to have the opportunity to share the achievements of the movement here in Europe. And actually, in writing my presentation for that conference, it became clear that 2011 was a really monumental year in terms of the BDS movement here in Europe and the UK. Israel's largest agricultural exporter, Carmel Agretzko, was forced into liquidation following a campaign in 13 different European countries. There's a lot of successes, so if we pass everyone, I'll take away. Here in London, though, I think we can be really proud that after a 2-year campaign, we finally closed the Ahava shop that was selling. And the students at King's College have now taken up this campaign and are protesting their own universities linked with Ahava. And we're very happy that they got national media coverage for their campaign yesterday. The French multinational company Veolia lost billions of pounds worth of contracts with local municipalities for its complicity with Israeli violations of international law, most notably the contract for £1 billion in South London, which is a campaign that the Palestine Solidarity Campaign should be really, really proud of. It was also, 2011 was also a year in which we saw huge growth of the movement internationally. Inspired by the motions passed by the Trade Union Congress here in the UK, we saw trade unions in Venezuela, in Australia, in Brazil join the BDS movement. 2011 was also a year where we saw the kind of concrete impacts that the BDS campaign is able to have. Al Jazeera English conducted a poll of 7,000 Europeans. Of those 7,000 Europeans, only 45% said that they believed that Israel is a democracy. Our solidarity movement, and the BDS movement in particular, is playing a huge part in these changing public attitudes. But we also saw the impact that BDS is having inside Israel. Leading politicians, businessmen called for changes in government policy in order to stem the effect of the BDS campaign. And the Israeli government introduced a law to ban support from inside Israel for BDS. There's now a real fear within Israel that it's becoming a pariah state in the way that South Africa once was. But I think it's very easy to get carried away with the success of our activism. We have to remember there are still 7 million Palestinian refugees unable to return to their homes. Israeli apartheid is very much firmly in place, and the siege of Gaza remains, and the war drum beat is beating again. So we need to think about how we can reach more people with our campaigns. We need to think about how we can turn the support for Palestine into action for Palestine. In short, we need to become more effective and intensify our efforts. And it's with that in mind that I'd like to read a short call to action that was released from Gaza on the 27th of December to mark the commemoration of 3 years of Cast Lead. It was signed by 40 organisations, but it's very beautifully written for an action call. We, Palestinians of Gaza, 3 years on from the 22-day-long massacre in Israel's Operation Cast Lead, are calling on international civil society to make 2012 the year when solidarity with us in Palestine captures the spark of the revolutions around the Arab world and never looks back. We will never forget the hurt of 3 years ago, the criminal onslaught that we lived through, the blood of over 1,400 murdered men, women and children, hundreds of children running through the streets of Gaza, between the rubble, soaking our beds and etched on our minds. We will never forget, for they are still dead, and thousands more are still maimed. We will never forget the last 63 years during which our land, homes, olive groves, lemon trees and cherished way of life was taken away from us. while Israeli soldiers held our fathers' faces in the sand, imprisoned them or shot them in front of us. We will not forget the sickening cowardice of the international community that has allowed and enabled this ethnic cleansing of our people, subjecting us to Israel's racist Zionist vision that defines us, the indigenous people of Palestine, as the undesired ethnic group. The effect of the Gaza massacres 3 years ago was a catalyst for a huge rise in worldwide solidarity and action in support of Palestine, just as the South African Sharpeville massacre was for South African blacks in 1960. For us, the sacrifices of resisting have often meant imprisonment, torture, collective punishment, and death. Outside, the risks are lower, but the possibilities are still great. We call on you to boycott, divest, and sanction. Join the many international trade unions, universities, supermarkets, and artists and writers who refuse to entertain apartheid Israel. Speak out for Palestine, for Gaza, and crucially, act. There has never been a time when mobilizations are gaining such support. 1994 was the year when South African apartheid was thrown into the dustbin of history. With your support, we can make 2012 the year for a free Palestine. Thank you very much.